Hello grapplers and welcome to a new video. Zangief certainly needs more things. The changes from Season 1 to Season 2 were great, and well, they took back standing medium kick, that's another thing. We're not gonna talk about that. What I want to propose now are a few changes that I would like to have for Zangief. Now these are gonna be rebalances, possible rebalances. This is just imagining, make believe. But these are a few things I feel could benefit Zangief in every single sense. Let's start with the obvious. Let's address the elephant in the room. Or well, in this case, the two elephants. Super level 2, Cyclone Lariat. The startup sucks. This has to be changed. You're gonna have it at 15 frames, and that would be on par with other super level 2s in the game, and that would make a lot of sense. Everything else, fine. And the other big thing is Lariat. So what's going on with Lariat? Everyone wants Lariat to hit cross-ups. I'm in a little bit in between right now. The bigger issue Lariat has at the moment is the later frames. When Zangief starts spinning, the first spin is great. Has a great hitbox. Is frankly amazing. That hitbox is fine. It's very good. But you rarely see this hitbox outside of a combo. Most of the time you're gonna try to anti-air with the later frames, because this move is so slow. Probably you're gonna start spinning, and this is the first spin, and these are the later spins, and you'll see that the hitbox is frankly awful. So the issue here is they need to speed up Lariat, but you also need to address this hitbox. If the opponent is in the air and you are anti-airing with Lariat, it shouldn't matter if you're going for the first, second, or later spins. This should be a decent anti-air, and before some people say, well, Kerplunk, you only press 2 buttons for this anti-air, well, down heavy punch is pretty common in this game. Some mediums are good anti-airs, so I don't think that's a legit excuse for this to be that bad. The only make Lariat faster, we will still have some issues with anti-airing. So in terms of speed, I think the regular Lariat should be 12 frames, but no cross-up hitbox for the regular Lariat. However, the OD Lariat should have a complete hitbox, and that should cover cross-ups. But again, they need to make it faster, probably 9 frames. The standing attacks, most of them are fine, but I think there are 2 very important exceptions. And the first one is standing light punch. So far, standing light punch and standing light kick work more or less in the same way. However, as you can see here, this is -2, -4, and this is +4, +2. The issue with the standing light punch is not necessarily the frames, but the distance, the pushback. Because usually when you play Zangief, you're gonna use this string as a defensive poke, because this has more range than crouching light punch. So if you're poking with crouching light kick, very likely this is what you're gonna use. But this pushback is insane. The same thing applies over here. So I think what they need to do is reduce the pushback of the button on block and on hit. Now by how much? I don't think they need to change it in such a huge manner. This is the regular pushback, maybe here, and that'd be fine. That would leave, for example, here, it would leave you closer to the opponent, and you could go for standing medium punch if they press something, or standing medium kick, because right now you get nothing but standing heavy punch, and they can backdash and escape your pressure. So they need to change the pushback of standing light punch. The rest of the buttons are probably fine. Maybe you can reduce the armor or increase the speed of the armor of standing heavy punch to be on frame 3 instead of being on frame 4. That would also help. But I do have some changes for the standing heavy kick. I think the main problem here is just the hitbox. This should have a way better hitbox over here. I don't think this makes any sense. To only have Zangief foot as an anti-air, I think this could be improved upon. But they don't need to go that crazy. Probably closer to this hurt box, and that'd be fine. You will be able to anti-air and trade sometimes, because sometimes you go for this, and the opponent is jumping really close to Zangief, and you don't get the anti-air. You lose. And that doesn't make that much sense for the hitbox, hurtbox, and for the utility of the button, because this is just basically just an anti-air button, and sometimes combo filler, but most of the time this is an anti-air in the corner. The first one is crouching light punch. I think at this point in time, it doesn't make much sense for Zangief to not have a 5-framer. I know SPD is the 5-framer, but that's a motion move. One element that Zangief is truly lacking is a 5-framer. They need to address that with crouching light punch. They can leave everything as is. Crouching medium punch is another attack I have issues with, but I'm not sure we can fully change this button. If they increase the hitbox a little bit over here, you would still need a little bit more in order to have the same length as Crouching Light Punch, and it's 8 frames. So I think the best thing they can do with this button is just to make it 6 frames, because you could poke with Crouching Light Punch into Crouching Medium Punch and maybe stop there for the +3. In some instances you could go for Lariat, probably all the Lariat, or you could DRC and the damage would be really scaled, but at least you could get an easy confirm with Zangief. That would not break the character, because the DRC would be stupidly scaled from a Crouching Light Punch into a Crouching Medium DRC. If you want to whiff punish with this, it doesn't matter if this is 9 frames or 6 frames, it would still be pretty hard because the hitbox is not good. But instead of expanding the hitbox, I just prefer this to be 6 frames. Zangief has a gap between frames. From being +7 to being +14, you don't have much. You either go from Hell Stab or Headbutt. And on block, even worse, because you either get another Crouching Light Punch or SPD. It's very hard for Zangief to be really plus. With the exception of Headbutt, you're usually between +1 and +2. And this would help, because at least you could have a Crouching Medium Punch to get some trades with 5 frames or 4 frames depending on the plus frames. It's been relegated to just be a perfect parry, Crouching Heavy Punch combo starter. But the main issue here is the 11th frame startup. I think this should be reduced. And reduced by probably 2 frames, so you could punish way more things with this. You would not punish lights, because lights are usually +8, but at least with 9 frames you could technically use it as anti-air, because right now this is not an 11 frame anti-air. You'll see here that this is the first frame, the first active frame, and all of these frames do not work for anti-airing purposes. You need to have this one. So there's a bunch of pre-frames, well, they're not pre-frames, they're active frames but grounded frames. 9 frame startup, you will have a 12 framer Crouching Heavy Punch as anti-air, and that would be fine, because this would be the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12. You will have a 12 frame anti-air. Crouching Light Kick is a difficult situation. I don't think it's necessary to have a 12 frame recovery Crouching Light Kick. It doesn't have the reach you're supposedly need to have with this character. This is the only defensive poke you have, and it's also pretty bad on hit and on block. I think the main issue here is it's a combination of things, but of everything he has, on all the issues he has with Crouching Light Kick, I think the main one are the frames. If you're defending with this button, you'll always be 0, and sometimes your Crouching Light Punch or Standing Light Punches could whiff. So this is not good enough. So the thing they need to do is change the frames. They can leave the hurt boxes, they can leave the recovery frames. My recommendation is to have it maybe -2 on block, but it needs to be plus on hit. At least +1. I think +1 is enough. It would make a lot more sense for you to have plus frames after your only defensive poke. Now we can move on to the unique attacks or the command normals. Hell Stab, the only thing I would change for Hell Stab, I know some people want to change the motion of Hell Stab, but I think the main issue right now are the recovery frames, 21. So I think they need to do something with the recovery frames. Now, the recovery frames could affect the cancel window, but still, I would take that over 21 frames of recovery. That's just too much. Too much for a command normal that has no range, and the main usage is just a combo filler and sometimes situational counter hit, wave punisher basically. As you know, I'm not the biggest fan of Knee. I think this move is fundamentally broken, but not broken because how it works, mostly because how it doesn't. Way too random, because you'll see that you can go from a +1 to +7, or being -3 to +3. It's very hard to gauge just by eye how plus you are. So I think the main issue with this button is consistency. They need to make something more consistent out of this button. And if they don't want to do that, they can increase the distance. So I would make this button flat. Either -2, +2, or -3, +2, something flat. Let me give you a reason why I want Headbutt to be nerfed. Right now, Headbutt is the only move you can certainly trust in this game with Zangief. Because Headbutt starts your offense, you can take your turn back, you can do a bunch of damage, you do a bunch of things with Headbutt. Headbutt is the only tool. So right now we're trying to expand Zangief arsenal. If you have more tools, you don't need Headbutt to be that strong, so you would have more tools, like a Crouching Medium Punch at 6 frames, a 5 framer, a better Crouching Heavy Punch, a better crouchy light kick. So if you have more tools, you don't need to have just one tool that does it all, and therefore you can nerf it. Now, how would I nerf it? First, the damage. Right now it's +7 because you need to combo into Hell Stab. If you make it this to be 6 frames, you would always combo into crouching medium punch, but only sometimes counter hit into Hell Stab, and that would be a pretty good trade because you would do less damage with crouching medium punch, which would be the guaranteed headbutt crouching medium punch, or you would do more damage with Hell Stab if you recognize the counter hit. On block, probably +4 on block, still fine for Zangief. He doesn't have the best moves in terms of speed, so I think +4 is fine, but the damage and the +7 on hit might need to change if they're giving Zangief more tools. That's the main thing. I know that would be difficult for you to go into headbutt, but I would take that out of Zangief, and if that means we can have better overall poking. Smetana dropkick is something, this is gonna be a hot take, kinda. I don't think this move sucks. It is better than, for example, knee or stomp. In theory, because you push someone to the corner with a punish counter, and the hitbox is actually pretty good. A lot of buttons you might want to use this for are 16 frames, 17 frames. The window for you to punch with this is way too tight. Just to rebalance this button, you need to make it faster. This has to be either 14, in fact 14 could be very good. The active frames need to be increased, probably by 1 or 2 frames. I don't think you need to have 40 recovery frames for this button, but still I think it has to be long enough for the opponent to punish you. So I think 20-25 frames is fine. I don't think they need to change the on block, the -18. They can keep that, because this button, the idea of this button is to have a high risk, high reward. Right now it's just a high risk, nothing reward. I think during normal hit and counter hit, you should always get the corner carry where they roll and go to the corner and you can do something afterwards. Now on punish counter, this should wall bounce. And since you are making it faster and reducing the recovery frames, theoretically, you should be able to get a Hell Stab or a Lariat if the Lariat is faster. Stomps are hard. They're very hard. I think they can keep the 9 frames, but they need to increase the hitbox of the second stomp. Only the first one actually moves forwards. The other one is pretty bad. And that's probably it, because some people want this to be a low. I don't think that makes much sense for Zangief. If they don't want to buff the distance or the frames DRC after the second stomp, one thing they can do is just make the entirety, the 3 hits, a regular combo. Jumping attacks. So far I think most of them are fine with only 2 exceptions. I think they need to do something about this hitbox. It's the first one, and the second one is this move having 8 landing frames. They can easily reduce this to, well, the regular 3. I don't know why this has 8. It doesn't make any sense for this to have 8 landing frames. I don't have much to say. I mean, we already talked about Lariat. Maybe you can increase the range of Borscht Dynamite, the regular one in the OD one. Now, how do you fix this move? The easiest answer is for it to parry every single kick. The issue with that is, well, some characters don't have kicks. So I think there's a fundamental issue with Tundra. If they don't want Tundra to counter punch it, they need to reduce the frames. 6 frames is just too much. This has to be stupidly fast for it to work in Street Fighter 6. Probably 1 frame or 2 frames, that should be the starter. And honestly, if you have a Thunderstorm that is 1 or 2 frames, you could have a very good answer for a lot of situations where Zangief is basically, well, defenseless. The only things I would change, besides Super Double 2 being 15 frames, is for Bolshoi Stormbuster. This is incorrectly listed at 7 frames. This is actually a 6 frame move. A quality of life for training mode and other things. So I would change this to 6 frames just for consistency. The Aerial Russian Slam. This has to be, again, same thing as the Thunderstorm. This has to be stupidly fast. And I will be fine with that being the only change. It has to be either 5 frames, 6 frames. That would allow Zangief to go for this more often, because with a 6 frames anti-air, even though it whips sometimes, you at least would try. Right now it's 11 frames. Sometimes people back jump, and you know they're gonna back jump, but you don't go for the super level 1 because it's just so freaking slow. So you react late and you don't even consider it. The faster super level 1, you would just let that thing go. You see a freaking back jump or a neutral jump, you would go for it. And that would be in line with Zangief, because technically the weakness of Zangief are not the back jumps, the back dashes and the forward jumps. That is mostly what I want for Zangief. You'll notice that even with all of these changes, Zangief would still struggle against Lily, against JP Ed, because these changes are mostly to rebalance the character to have it more functional and to have more options. That's the thing I want out of Zangief, to have more options. We're so focused on getting headbutt, it's hard to express yourself with the character, because you either go into headbutt, spinebuster, SPD, poke. Having this character so limited, I don't think that's the way to go. For Street Fighter 6, that's the thing, for Street Fighter 6, where the drive system is meant to increase the possibilities for every single character in the game, it just doesn't for Zangief. So with all these changes, would he be top tier? No. Do Zangief players want him to be top tier? No. We want him to be, again, functional and to be fun. I hope you really like this video. Take care of yourselves, sleep well, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.